I'm curious, I said you're a first generation healing arts practitioner. What does that mean to you? Like, what is the importance for you to be first generation?
Yeah, I took it for granted my whole life, most of my life. I was raised with one foot in Mexico, one foot in the United States, literally. My dad is from Panama and my mom's from Mexico. They immigrated here to the US and met here in Chula Vista, San Diego, and created our family. And so both of my parents speak English with an accent. Both of my parents come from different countries. In my home, only Spanish was spoken. And my weekends were spent in Tijuana on the streets, riding bikes and skating with my cousins. So I realized in ceremony and working with elders and finding my name and my space, my path, that I was raised biculturally. I was raised with one foot in one reality, one foot in another reality. I was raised knowing both English and Spanish, and I don't know which one I learned first. And so I believe that this has created this multi-dimensional experience of living for me from the get-go, from the first moment. I had an expanded view on the world and on culture. My first best friend was a redhead from Louisiana. And when I would go to her home, it was so different how they ate, what they ate.
The smells.
Everything. Everything. And I remember being like 8 and thinking, how weird, not everybody's Mexican. like how strange to, and it wasn't like in a judgment. It was more like a curiosity, like, wow, there's all these other ways to live. And I think in that, my mind just kind of stayed open. And so I've always been so accepting of other experiences of being. And I believe that to do the work that I do, I have to have this wide panoramic lens, right? If I'm only looking at things, this or that, black or white, I'm missing the entire spectrum, this entire, like it's like a prism. I feel like every human is a prism with all these facets, all these ways that we reflect light. And being bicultural, being a first generation American, by nature, I have this widened lens. And so that's
maybe even more of an appreciation for the beauty in our differences.
Yes, I have never felt that difference was dangerous, ever. If anything, I invite it, I welcome it. And from within being raised in a middle-class Mexican family, I was different. So it's like a full spectrum difference. I was different in my school. I was different in my friend group. And I was also different in my own family of origin. So I kind of came in with that blueprint of holding a different way of being.
I call us bridge people.
Absolutely.
We are bridge persons who bridge cultures, bridge different perspectives even. And then something else I think I know about you is you also maybe were a bit into some punk rock and yes. DIY and hardcore and music. Like you come from the music scene as well. I've been noticing just in this space that we're in the quote unquote spiritual work, healing work, a lot of folks who come from like this punk rock DIY background now later in their lives are gravitating towards this work. Do you see a little bit of that too?
Oh yes.
Like the spiritual healers covered in tattoos, you know what I mean?
100%. Yes, I've actually made this joke with a few friends. Some, I won't name drop them, but some really, tantric practitioners, really deep, adept lineage holders who were goth kids, who were punks.
Yeah.
And I think to really be in the realm of spirit, we're on the fringes, right? And when you're a punk kid or a goth kid, those fringes are home. That's where we find our identity. That's where we find our people. Yeah. So of course we would grow up and continue to stay in that perimeter of culture, for sure.
Yeah. I have a past of headbanging on stages and being in the energy of like, it's also of a movement, because like music, and especially in my case, like hardcore and metal music, it is a movement. And so now it's like the energy is the same, but the movement has changed, and what we're moving towards has changed, but it still has that essence of the esoteric, of the outsiders, of something that is outside of the norm.
Yes.
And I think there's something special to those who can see, maybe the nuance, the subtleties of like what is, kind of like of the human experience, but that's outside of the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think I could stick to the status quo if I tried. I actually did try. I tried to be very normal, and I ended up becoming an alcoholic. So I don't believe that trying to fit into the mold serves me or is even possible for me in any healthy way. But I love to see our trajectory, right? Like being punk kids, headbangers, and sobering up, maturing to chase that same movement, but now in the service of a bigger vision, a more concrete vision of collective healing and freedom and expansion.